Good day, Junior Tux. This is Mrs. DeMelon, and today we are going to look at Activity 2 for the Creditors Journal, Ledgers, and Creditors List. So, first, a bit of theory. So first we need to look at the layout of the Creditors Journal. Now, the Creditors Journal looks very similar to a cash payments journal. However, there's a few changes. First of all, the document number is now referred to as the invoice number, and we always renumber the invoices because they come from different businesses and different companies, so we need to renumber them here in our own books. Then obviously the day is the date of the transaction. Then we have the name of the creditor. Then this folio here, folio column there, refers to the Creditors Ledger number. Now you will see what I mean by that later. So in the Creditors Ledger, every creditor gets a number, an account number, and that is what you reference in that folio column. The Creditors Control column, then this column is the total on your invoice. So the total on the invoice, if you buy 10 or 15 or 20 things, is the total of all 20 added together. And then it is, as I say here, the amount is classified according to the items purchased. So if you purchase trading stock for 500 Rand and equipment for 200 Rand, you'll put 500, let's say 700 Rand in creditors control, 500 in the trading stock, and 200 in equipment. So it's actually quite straightforward. Then next, the keywords that you need to look for. So your keywords in terms of transactions is we purchase on credit, or purchased on account, or received an invoice, or credit invoice received, or taken on credit. So if you see any one of these or these phrases, then you know this transaction appears or must be recorded in the Creditors Journal. Now, posting to the general ledger. Now, the posting rule says that the accounts are debited to show the actual items purchased with their contra account details as creditors control. And the creditors control account is credited with the total value of the items purchased and services required on credit. So if you look at that, so in other words, your creditors control account is credited with the total or sundry accounts, total accounts or total purchases there, and then your contra accounts will have the creditors control CJ reference, and the contra accounts will be whatever you purchased, the stationery or the equipment or repairs done, whatever it might have been. The layout of your creditors ledger. Now this is what I mean. This is a new ledger, and I think this is new to most of you. So the layout will look the same for every single creditor. So you always have the name of the creditor there at the top, and then the number, account number there. And then the date column is split into a month, year, month, day column. So you have 2021, and below it, let's say May, and then the day first. The details is always your document number, or the specific document you use and the number. For instance, a receipt number 134 or invoice number B16 or whatever it might be. The folio column here is your folio reference. Debit column is minus, credit column is plus, and the balance is equal. Now, what do I mean by that? It's the accounting equation rule. We are working with a current liability. So current liabilities, we know the rule says debit minus credit plus. And the balance is a rollover balance. So each time you plus or minus, you have to roll over and have a new balance on each line. But you'll see what I mean when we do the actual activity. So here we start. Activity 2, the Creditors Journal, Ledgers, and Creditors List. They tell us that we are needing to complete the Creditors Journal and renumber the invoice starting from B104 for JT Traders during March 2022. And we have to post to the Creditors Ledger and the Creditors List. Now, the information at the bottom, they give us the Creditors List, and then they give us the opening balances. Now, just like we have a control measure for debtors control, if you quickly pause and think about the previous section, we said that the control account must equal the debtors list. Now, the same applies here. The creditors list is individual totals owed to these creditors, and the control account is the total of all creditors combined that we owe. So in other words, your total of your list here must equal that creditors control figure there. So if we have to, the next slide now is all the transactions. So if we look at the transactions now, we are going to look at the keywords. Remember our keywords, and we're going to highlight them to decide in which journal they belong. So if I highlight in yellow, that will be the Creditors Journal, and if we highlight in another color, that will be probably a Cash Payments Journal. So the first one, received a credit invoice from new suppliers for 8,433 in respect of the consumables and merchandise. Now, they didn't give us a merchandise amount, but if the total of the invoice is 8,433 Rand, then and 607 is consumables, the rest must obviously then be for the merchandise or the trading stock. Day 9, bought consumables and stationery on credit, so that's also, but there was 10% trade discount, and I'll explain. Remember, trade discount is when we buy things in bulk and we get a discount, and we record only the amount after discount, and I'll explain that on the next slide. Day 14, we bought things on credit and there was a 10% trade discount. Day 19, the repair division repaired the cash register and a credit invoice was received, so Creditors Journal. Day 24, we bought equipment for 22,999 Rand. The Wi-Fi router of 1,499 Rand included in the 22,999 Rand was paid with the store debit card, in other words cash, and the rest was taken on credit. So there's two parts to this transaction. The 1,499 Rand was cash, and the rest, the 20,000 Rand there, will be, or 18,000 Rand, left over will be on credit. Received an invoice for stock, that's on credit. Day 31, bought stock from TR Trichem, or whatever how you say that, for 4,006 pay a VAT EFT, that's CRJ. Received a credit invoice from them as well on the same day, and that is for a credit invoice there for Creditors Journal. Now, trade discount, as I say, is the discount allowed by the dealer to the business to promote bulk buying and clear obsolete or slow-moving stock. So hopefully you only buy this if you can move the stock. So, or it's the end of range or whatever it might be. So the business only records the net amount. In other words, the price minus the discount. So on the 9th, we bought for 850 and for 400, and we get 10% trade discount on each item. So if we take 10% of 850, that's 85 Rand, and 10% of 400, that's 40 Rand. So the net amounts that we will actually pay for the 850 is 765. That's after you've deducted the 85 Rand, and the 360 after you've deducted the 40. So in total, we will only pay 1,125 Rand. Then the 14th, we have 2,100 less 10% trade discount. So yet again, 10% of 2,100 is 210. The net amount is then minus the 210, and that gives you the 1,890 Rand, and that is what we will record. So if we now look at the Creditors Journal, the first entry that we have there is where we bought on credit for consumables and trading stock, and they didn't give us the trading stock amount. So the invoice number there is always your invoice number given to you. They told you we have to renumber from B104. The transaction happened on day 4th. Now the details here, as you can see there, says creditor, so you always just put the creditor's name. Then the folio must reference the folio must reference the creditors account. Now you'll see right at the beginning in your list, in the balance list, next to the new suppliers, it says CL2, and that's where I get that number from. The total of the invoice was 8,433. 607 Rand was for consumables. So the difference is then where I get the 7,826 Rand. The next transaction on day 9, we just worked out that we get 10% trade discount. So the invoice number just now follows. So B104, then 105. Day 9, again new suppliers, Creditors Ledger 2. His account number cannot change. It always stays the same. We've calculated after 10%, the total of the invoice is 1,125 Rand. And then we have 765 Rand for consumables and 365 for stationery. Now we put stationery under the sundry accounts because there's no heading for it here. So there's no column heading. Then it goes to sundry accounts. All amounts must always be recorded in the creditors control column. That's the total of the invoice that we have to record there. Okay, the next transaction. Sorry, I just wanted to show you that the net amount after discount is where I got the 1,125. On day 14, Trichem Wholesalers, 1,890 Rand. And you'll see that next to Trichem in the list of opening balances, you'll see that they were Creditors Ledger 3, and that's why I say CL3 there. That's their account number. And remember, we pay the net amount. So the invoice amount was 2,100 before the trade discount of 210 Rand. So we have to deduct it, and that's where I get the 1,890 Rand that is recorded there. The next invoice is number B107. That was for repairs recorded for new suppliers, CL2. Then B108, Swift Suppliers, the 21,500. Now all of you are going to say, where did I get the 21,500 from? Remember that the invoice was for 22,999 Rand, but 1,499 Rand for the Wi-Fi router was cash. So I can't record that in a credit journal. So the 1,499 Rand will be recorded in the CPJ, and then we only record the total amount due on credit in the journal, and that is the 21,500 Rand. Then on the 25th, new suppliers yet again, 2,996 Rand. And then the last one, the 24,390 Rand. So how do they did not give me the trading stock amount, but how do I get that? So the 24,000 is the total for the invoice, minus the 800, minus the 412 Rand will give you that 23,178 Rand. And all that is left is to total your columns vertically and to get all the final totals for your journal. And that's how you close off your journal. Now we have to look at the same journal and post it to the general ledger and the creditors ledger. So first of all, the general ledger, the creditors control account, we are working with a current liability. So our debt click rule or our accounting rule says minus on the debit side, plus on the credit side. And the trading stock account's a current asset, so plus on the debit side and minus on the credit side. We start with opening balances always. So before you start posting a journal, you always have to put in your opening balances, and that we get from the list of balances at the beginning of the activity. Yet again, because it's a current liability, a creditors control will have a credit balance brought down, and because trading stock is an asset, it will have a debit balance brought down. Now we have to post from the creditors journal. Now I know the creditors journal might not be so clear on this slide, but you should have it completed now. So just sort of follow as I highlight where I get the amounts from. So when we post from the creditors journal, the rule is creditors control. debit the rest, because we owe the total of the invoice to all our creditors. So the total of the creditors control column will be the total of all the invoices for the month. So that will increase our debt. So on the credit side, that is why we say here total or sundry purchases, creditors journal, and we take that total there of the creditors control column and we post it there, 63,441 rand. Then the next column we have is the trading stock column, and because it's a column, it's at the end of the month as well. So the trading stock column, yet again, because it's a column, we only post the total, and we bought more stock on credit, so it has to increase the trading stock account. So that is why we have a 31st creditors control CJ, and the total of that column 35,890 rand. And then remember, there was one cash transaction where we bought goods for cash, and that's the 4,600 rand. That's on the last day. Then the next account, yet again, is your equipment account, fixed assets at debit plus credit minus, and therefore it has a debit balance brought down from the list of balances. And the equipment in this case was not a column but a sundry. Now remember, when it's sundry, very important when we enter the transaction is that it has to be on a specific date. So if we look at sundries there, you have to follow the line back and see, oh, it was on the 24th. And that's where I get the date from. The details is creditors control because I bought it on credit, 21,500. And remember, the other half of that transaction was paying for the Wi-Fi router cash, and that was also on the 24th, but bank CPJ 1,499 rand. Then lastly, the two expenses, consumables, plus on the debit side, minus on the credit side, and stationery the same because they're both expense accounts. So yet again, we have a total brought forward on the debit side for both accounts from the list of balances and totals in the beginning of the month. Then we have to look at posting from the creditors journal. So yet again, consumables in this case was a column, so only posted total column, creditors control, and the total of the column 2,172 rand. And then stationery, yet again, there was two entries. Now please note, because it's sundry accounts, it's in sundry accounts here, I have to post in date order on specific days. I can't add them together because it wasn't a column total. So I have to take that first one on day 9 and then the second one on day 31st. You have to post them as two separate transactions. So on day 9, creditors control, the 360, and on day 31, the 412 rand. And that's the posting to the general ledger done. Now, when we have the Creditors Ledger, remember we are working with creditors. So in other words, the current liabilities. So debit is minus, credit is plus, and balance is obviously the balance or the rollover amount. So on March 1st, we have an account rendered. So that is your what we call your balance brought down in the general creditors ledger, and we call it an account rendered because they literally emailed me an account, and that is what the final amount on my statement was that I owed. And I have to actually do reconciliation of the statement and my accounts to make sure that they actually balance out, and what's on their statement matches what is in my creditors ledger account. So that 10,985 rand was given to you as an opening balance, and that's why it's only in the balance column. Now I have to go and look at my journals and literally go and see where do I find Swift wholesalers, because I'm now busy working with Swift wholesalers. So I have to go to my journal and see, oh, there's only one Swift wholesaler transaction. So now I'm going to fill that in. I must check the date because this is now transaction specific. Day 24, invoice number. How do I know what my invoice number is? There I look in my invoice number document number column, B108. Then I reference the journal I'm working with in my folio. Now because it's CJ, it means my debt has increased. I purchased more on credit, so I'm going to owe more money. So the 21,500 is in the credit column. And now to get to the 32,000, sorry for that, to get to the 32,000, you have to take your 10,000 there, plus this 21,500 will equal this 32,485 Rand. And you will do this for every account. So the next one, let's say new suppliers, there's the account, so new suppliers. So let's see, new suppliers on the 4th, new suppliers on the 9th, new suppliers on the 19th, and the 25th, and you literally enter them in the exact same way. So if we look at them all filled out, just to save a bit of time, you'll see that I've went and made sure that all of the ones, all of the accounts or invoices were recorded according to each specific creditor. And then at the end, I must take these final totals. So each total, the 32,000, the 22,000, and the 32 here at the bottom, and I must put them in the creditors list. So this final totals is then transferred to the list, and then I have a final total of the 87,308 Rand. And if you look at your creditors control balance that you worked out, you will see that your creditors control account equals the creditors list. And now you know that you have done everything internally correct. This is an internal control measure to make sure that you've done your posting correct for the month. And that is how you know you are done with your accounts and you can tick it off. And then finally, we are going to move on to activity 3, and that will be in the next video. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. Goodbye.